Hello, everybody. Today I have the Seven of Swords as the obstacle and the Tower as the opportunity. Can't wait to hear about this card that has a charming and lovely reputation, usually. To get started with this one, Seven of Swords. The Seven. I think this is a card that depicts an environment defined by information, knowledge and information as it pertains to people and where those people intersect with large, big, big brain abstract ideas. I think this could, I think this could describe things like um, virtues, spiritual truths, or um, yeah, I would say that things that are deeper than deeper than just I don't know scientific information or reasoned knowledge. I think it's the things that come underneath that. In a lot of ways, it also deals a lot with the suit of this kind of idea deals with the suit of cups, dealing with emotions and things that are more felt than thought. And I don't think it's a coincidence that usually the swords are depicted as being blue, which is the color of cups, of that emotional kind of intuitive feeling sense. But yeah, this card here depicts looks like this guy is doing a sneaky, and he's sneaking away with what this card always. I really like this card. It always gives me a very strong, very specific kind of feeling uh, or interpretation. It's this guy, and stealing away. He's stealing away the cultural pillars of this camp or this community. Sneaks in there. That he didn't grab them all. There's a couple that are still there, and these are swords. These are ideas that are almost like these tent poles. These proudly displayed, rigid, rigid things that are driven right into the ground. They're at on a perfect angle. This camp seems temporary. These swords seem like markers almost that define where these people are. So I think this represents cultural ideas, cultural information, and the volatility of that information. The six also relates to this kind of scene unfolding in the world, but the six is more a state of balance between those two things. So the six would be something that would more address, you know, um, two different people or two different groups of people with different ideas about the world, but kind of mixing together, there being a balance between the left and the right, or the higher and the lower, let's say. But yeah, but this one definitely symbolizes some sort of imbalance, some sort of transfer of ideas. And as far as an obstacle here, uh, I don't know. I think you know, it reminds me of fairly well accepted contemporary attitude pertaining to multiculturalism. And I was recently speaking with an administrator at a hospital about the use of their use of funding to try and make the hospital more hospitable, um, uh, more inviting, and we were both in agreement. We both agreed that it's it's not enough just to heal people insofar as that means to take away their disease and their pain and their suffering. That's certainly pretty important, and it feels great to have your disease or suffering taken away. But people also need people really need something to aim for, something like a positive direction. Just focusing on removing the negative things in your life does not give you a very meaningful direction. Avoiding bad things is not the same as pursuing good things. And to pursue good things, well, you got to figure out what those good things are. And we were talking about, one of the roadblocks that one encounters when trying to create spaces that are culturally meaningful to people is different people from different places find different things, meaningful and valuable. So becomes very difficult to create a space that's, let's say, something like a hospital chapel that can adequately satisfy the spiritual needs of even two cultures, much less, six or seven. And yeah, this administrator, she was really acknowledging. She was like, yeah, it's really difficult because what ends up happening is no one even bothers to use the multicultural spiritual rest retreat, quiet meditation, prayer, mindfulness ceremony room, because it's no one uses it because it's meaningless to everyone. It shares so many ideas with things that people don't consider spiritual that it just turns into a regular room. So no one gets to benefit. In a way, it would be better if just there was a lottery and one culture got to have its religious spiritual room and no one else got theirs. At least someone would be getting some some value of virtue, of beliefs, of a spiritual aim in life. um, but I think that this sort of volatility of cultural ideas, of how freely people are expected to mix and match them. I think that sometimes, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of times that is a great thing, or it leads to great outcomes. But there are also times when um, the the cultural norms, insofar as they are behaviors or aesthetics or um, virtues that an adherence to creates a whole structure of moral values. Sometimes they're incompatible, and sometimes this is just ignored. The presumption is that anyone should be able to take any mix of cultural beliefs and just mash them all together, and there shouldn't be any problems. I think I think that is often a you know misconceived estimation of how those types of concepts work together and how sometimes they don't. So I think the obstacle here might be, um, yeah, maybe stealing the kind of things that don't belong or don't fit, or transferring things, maybe trying to apply some of your own ideas, high order ideas, trying to forcefully apply those to others or trying to convince others of that in a way that doesn't really work. The King of Swords, as an individual who sits between the stability of the six and the action and volatility of the seven. This is an individual who is in the process of looking out into the world, looking out onto the territory that is yet to be discovered, and is interested. Um, and the transition from the six to the seven is embodied by the the king, who sort of surveys. He presides over his territory, but surveys the neighboring territories and makes plans on how to move into those territories expand their influence, extend their knowledge and experience to explore new lands. Um, and I think that the in this series of cards, you know, that the individual represented by that king would be venturing out under some misconceptions. It would be misconceived plan um, to expand into wherever he's planning on going. Um, and that's what would sort of create the situation of finding yourself in a place where either you're taking on information is that just creates volatility, or you are, sharing information. I don't know why I just thought of Star Trek's Prime Directive. They have all this knowledge, they have all this technology, and when they encounter species and civilizations that are not at you know warp travel uh, advancement of level of technological advancement, their rules specify that they don't interfere with those civilizations. Even something like just transferring technology has a radical impact on culture, on behavior. Um, yeah, maybe this card could also represent the danger of adopting a new information system or a new strategy for managing information. That might be like a modern technological version of this. Um, yeah, even adopting a new tool for information management. And moving on to, oh yeah, let's see, the Marseille card. Sword in the middle, kind of driving a wedge between what was this balance between the two sides. Um, but yeah, and then for the opportunity, the tower. Man, this card gets such a bad rep in the restored Marseille, and the what has now been widely agreed upon as the original earliest sort of conceptualization of these cards. We can really see the kind of radical difference of theme here. Um, the A lot of the scholars studying the Marseille, they interpret the figures in the card on the left as dancing, and reprints of the Marseille even changed the the feeling and interpretation. The ground was a different color, similar to the way that the figures in the Waite card are just falling through this black void. If I'm not mistaken, that the portion that is kind of the flesh colored ground, I think used to be black. It used to indicate that they're sort of falling into a void. But yeah, tracking down the original colors that a piece of art was created in, it seems like a fascinatingly complex endeavor. And especially when you take into account that something like the Tarot of Marseille, it they take their colors very seriously. Um, I mean, I don't think anyone has really done a truly in-depth study of looking at each card and coming up with a coherent, I don't know, like a coherent matrix that intersects all of the objects and their colors. Um, but anyway, even subtle changes of colors can have huge impacts on the meaning, on the interpretation. So generally, the tower is seen as a pretty bad card. Like, a lot of people worry about the death card. They see the death card and it freaks them out. But then they see the tower and they don't really associate it with anything bad. It's like often the tower, this is the really bad guy. You got to watch out for. But I think that I think that this is a card of balance. In fact, we were just talking about the seven, which is the sort of active, fluid, moving state of affairs. I think this is a card that symbolizes a type of balance, and I think that um, I have two personal readings of this. One of them is of the tower representing uh, either a church or a castle, but one way or another, it's a building that at at this point in time held authority. Like kings, up until a certain time, kings were kings because they were in some way inheriting some authority from God. That's largely how people saw the authority of the rulers sort of, you know, make itself apparent. The kings and queens were considered to be like children of God, messengers of God, whatever. The church would serve a very interesting and important role in acknowledging, proving, providing supporting documentation and evidence to the validity of these claims. Um, so much of even science at the many times throughout history, um, so much of it was aimed at proving the sort of celestial authority of an individual. So, nonetheless, regardless of whether you look at the structure as a castle or as a church, um, it is a it is a building that symbolizes is a building that houses authority, and I think that it it could often be dangerous to see authority as only sort of residing within the church. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there's some really radical uh, Christian text. There's like a gospel that was like recently discovered or hidden or something. Maybe it's the gospel of Jesus Christ. I can't remember. But anyway, the idea behind the message is something along the lines of like, you know, it, you don't need to go to church to find God. God isn't inside this building. These buildings don't have authority over God. These buildings don't contain God. God is everywhere. God is, all throughout the world. Um, and I think this card sort of demonstrates either that authority, whether it's religious, metaphysical, virtuous, that authority exploding out of the building out into the world, or the world that is normally full of that sort of spiritual meaning, because there was also plenty of times when, particularly in kind of pagan mindsets, it was the world that was magical and spiritual, and structures were just things that human beings made, right? So this could be the reversal, where it's because I like how it's kind of hard to tell which, in the Waite card, it's like a lightning bolt is hitting the tower. It has an arrow that's pointing at it, so we could. It seems like the direction is from the sky to the tower. But with the Marseille card, it's like, is it exploding? That crown is sort of lifting off, like a lid is blowing off the top, so it kind of looks like it's exploding outwards. But then also, some of the flames, I guess, look like they're going down into the tower. So I kind of like to just see it both ways. It's both the that metaphysical property contained within the structure spilling out into the world, and the metaphysical property of the world of nature spilling into this constructed, manifestation of human work and engineering. And I think that exchange symbolizes like a type of balancing. Um, no longer is the inside very different from the outside, and vice versa. And yeah, with this recolorization of this card, these individuals are now often interpreted as dancing in celebration of this phenomena, of this happening. Um, the opportunity here, long story short, the opportunity here is to go outside and dance. No, it could be many things. It could certainly be the opportunity to find the kind of things that are inspiring outside, to find those things inside, or the things that are inspiring inside to find them outside. The kind of things that, you know, inspire dancing, the kind of things that just have that direct impact on someone's mood. Now that could be a state of spiritual exuberance, spiritual ecstasy, or it could just be creative inspiration. Or, yeah, any. I kind of associated, I guess, largely with the suit of wands and that kind of impulsive, instinctive, automatic, um, just drive and behavior to do certain things. Um, but yeah, so I think it's something like bringing some nature into the house. Bringing some plants into the house. That can have a profound aesthetic effect on a person's enjoyment of their internal space. Um, bringing bringing other aspects of nature, animals into the house, or taking things that are in the house or in the office or whatever, and uh, you know, transferring them to the outside world, terraforming the outside world, balancing it with properties that are shared on the inside. I'm reminded of that Beck video where he's got his whole office desk and everything on the beach. It's another day at the office, but it's a day at the office on the beach. Um, yeah, I guess with the Waite Tower interpretation, it could be like some some structure is getting destroyed, and and it could have been one of those structures that was a byproduct of too much orderliness, too much rigidity. It was just this stagnant, solid thing that was um, way past its prime, past its due date, past its expiry date, and now it's finally getting struck by lightning and and destroyed. And this could create, you know, you knock down one thing, usually creates a space and an opening, a power vacuum of some sort to be filled. It could be the displacement of those authority figures, spiritual, metaphysical, or otherwise. But in general, I just prefer the Marseille interpretation of this kind of balancing between the external and the internal um, world of people and their ideas about the outdoor environment and the indoor environment. So yeah, careful which ideas or systems of information management you incorporate. Careful where you put new information and where you take information from, particularly as it pertains to people and kind of abstract ideas they have about life and meaning in the universe and everything. And go outside and dance and get a puppy. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.